So are you looking to play a character that can be a great infiltrator, a great controller, and do great damage? Well, you're in luck. Because behind today's secret door, the Ranger Beastmaster test drive. So behind today's secret door, the Ranger Beastmaster test drive. This is Secret Door, a channel devoted to in-depth discussion about Dungeons and Dragons, and my name is Matt Morich. Alright, I have started a Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the channel, your help would be greatly appreciated and much needed. And many thanks to Marcelo, Doug, and Jamie for your support. The link will be in the description and in the pinned comment. Now, in regards to the pinned comment, please do check it, because that's where I'm going to put any kind of omissions, things that didn't quite make it into the video, things that didn't survive an edit, or simply just mistakes that I made. That's always a possibility that could happen. I hate them when they happen. I hate them, but it can happen. So they will be noted there. So a test drive is exactly what it sounds like. It's your ability to see how a character class will play level by level. It's not quite a build and it's not quite a guide. It's a test drive. It's build-ish and it's guide-ish. It's giving you a chance to see how this character really plays, because sometimes when you're just listening to a build, you don't get the context of how the character actually progresses, and you don't get that sense of how it'll stack up to other character classes or other options that you might have. So that's what the test drive is. So normally I will give a certain amount of time to role-playing considerations. That's not going to be something I'm going to spend very much time on here with this one, because I think it's pretty self-evident as to what kind of character you're going to be able to create out of a Ranger Beastmaster. So before I get into the level by level, I would just like to say that for the record, I am not a Ranger guy. I have never played a Ranger, and I've been playing this game for over 40 years. The closest I ever came to playing a Ranger was in Pathfinder, and I was playing a bard who had the leadership feat, and I needed a bodyguard, and the Ranger was a good option for the bodyguard. So I picked a Ranger for the leadership feat for my Pathfinder character. That is the closest I've ever come. So I am definitely not what you would call a Ranger guy. And doing the prep work for this has turned my brain into a pretzel. Because of all the subclasses for the Ranger, this is the one that attracted me the most. It is also the one that finding the way to get the most out of this class was, I was like a dog chasing its tail for a good portion of time. I'm pretty confident that what I'm going to present to you is, if it's not the optimal choice, I don't know what is. I was frankly shocked as I started going through this, how effective this character will be. This is not the kind of character you pick to lead the table in DPR if you're playing with really high-powered DPR characters. It's not going to be a Berserker Barbarian. It's not going to be an Armor of Agathis Warlock, Blade Warlock. It's not going to hit those numbers, but it's going to hit really strong numbers, very strong numbers, but they're not going to just blow the world to pieces like those two can. So if you needed to be a DPR leader, you could be, but you wouldn't be the best that the game has to offer right now. You are also going to have great options in terms of controlling. That's the thing that I think that really blew my mind, is how the tweaks that they have made to the Ranger make it so much more effective and so much more, and they're subtle things. They're small things, but they really do make a big difference. What I said in the intro is true. It's going to be a very good infiltrator, although that's almost secondary in my considerations here as I go through the test drive. Your ability to control, if you want it, if it's there for you, you can do it. If you want to hit for damage, you can do it. So your ability to, and of course the Ranger always has the ability to have skills and all that type of stuff, but your ability to put your fingers in all the pots and have a real effect is going to always be there for you. So now I often, when I encounter a character like this and I really wrap my brain around it, I often will say, if I were to play this, if I were to play a warlock, I would play the genie warlock or whatever. Now, I will often say when I'm doing a test drive where I get really excited about a particular character class, that if I were to play this class, I would play this class. If I were to play a Ranger, I would play the Beastmaster. No question about it. If I were to play a martial class, would I finally play a Ranger? I would definitely have to consider it now. Now, that may not sound like a very overwhelming recommendation on my part, but remember, you're talking to somebody that has never, in over 40 years of playing, ever played a Ranger. So it's just not, I don't automatically click with the Ranger concept from a role-playing standpoint. Mechanically, I can definitely see why I would do it. Okay, so let's just get right to it. I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible. It's got some nice synergies and some hidden little things in there that I'm going to point out and spend more time with those things. Overall, once you get the basic idea of it, it is fairly simple and straightforward. So I'm going to pick human here, and the feats that we want are Magic Initiate and we want Alert. With Magic Initiate, we're going to take Find Familiar. That should not be a big shock to anybody that I'm going to go with that, but we're going to take Find Familiar. It's also particularly fitting for a Ranger to have a pet owl that works great with the entire idea of a Ranger. For stats, what we want is a 15 in, so we're going to go point by here. So we want a 15 in strength and a 15 in dexterity and a 15 in wisdom. We're going to put that +2 into dex and that +1 into wisdom. We're also going to buy a 14 con. So now we have 2 points left over, and you've got strength, intelligence, and charisma to cover. You're going to dump 2 of those, and you're going to put the other 2 into that other one. It doesn't matter which one. So you'll have 2 8s and a 10 and 2 15s and a 14. So when it's all said and done, 17 dex, 16 wisdom, and 14 constitution, and a 10 somewhere. Now, one thing to remember also is that because we are playing a human, we're going to have a heroic inspiration available to us at the beginning of every long rest. I am not going to really address that concept in the test drive, but it is important to note that you have a reroll of any kind that you want that is a roll that you are making. In general, I think that I would probably use it for saving throws, of course. Those are going to be the best uses for it. And I don't know that I would use it for a concentration save, because you're going to have to make many of those throughout the gaming day, the adventuring day. I think I would want to hold on to that for a big saving throw. So at first level, the Ranger gets Weapon Mastery. That's fantastic. You get Spell Casting. That's super fantastic. And probably the most critical change that the Ranger and the Paladin received in the new Player's Handbook. And then you get another major change for the Ranger, and this one is, it's a big one, is Favored Enemy. So now Favored Enemy gives you free castings of Hunter's Mark. So here at first level, you are getting 2 spell slots and 2 castings of Hunter's Mark in a day. And this is where the Ranger in particular, more so than the Warlock, runs into some real issues. The Warlock has Hex, and Hex operates very much like Hunter's Mark. If you're familiar at all with the channel, you happen to know that when I do Warlock videos, I am a chief promoter of Hex. I think that Hex is a fine spell, but in particular with the Ranger, when it does come into a concentration conflict and you want to cast a control spell, with these, if you've got Hunter's Mark running and the control spell is more valuable, then just dump Hunter's Mark. It's not a big deal. But the Ranger has a bigger problem in integrating Hunter's Mark into their play style than the Warlock does, because the Warlock doesn't, if the Warlock's using Eldritch Blast, which is typically the case, the Warlock doesn't have extra attack options that are being used with a bonus action. Just about everything, martially speaking, that generates higher damage levels incorporates in some form or another bonus actions, and that becomes a real problem for the Ranger, because you can almost be certain that in a 4-round combat, one bonus action is going to be used to place Hunter's Mark, and another bonus action later in that turn is going to have to be used to transfer that Hunter's Mark onto another target. So in that 4-round combat, 2 of your bonus actions are already taken up. We'll get to this more when we get to level 4, but I just want to plant that seed. This was something that I had to wrestle with and around. So in terms of the weapon masteries, and this is very important for this character, is that you're going to be using a short sword and a scimitar. So the 2 weapon masteries that you want to have mastery over are Vex and Nick. Both of these are light weapons. Both of these are finesse weapons. The scimitar has Nick and the short sword has Vex. They both do a D6, both of them do a D6 in damage, but your main weapon when we get in, at level 5, the one that you're going to be using the multiple attacks with is the short sword for Vex. So when we attack with the light property, you get the bonus action attack that with another light weapon, that is going to be the scimitar. And because scimitar has Nick, that bonus action, the attack, becomes part of your regular attack, and you still have a bonus action free. That's the critical point. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about spells here at first level, because you get 2 fantastic choices. Well, you always have your whatever choices you're really wanting to take, but you have to take Entangle and Goodberry. Entangle is a fantastic control spell that is going to be useful to you throughout your entire career, and you get it right at the start at level 1, and you could cast it twice in a day if you needed to. Now with Goodberry provides 10 berries, and those berries last for 24 hours. That's a first level cast. It doesn't upcast, but using a spell slot will give you 10 Goodberries. And they last 24 hours. Each one will restore 1 hit point, and each one will also provide sustenance for that creature for the day. So the trick with Goodberry, of course, is, first of all, it's a great bang for your buck healing spell, but its real value comes in this. And this is a trick that you're going to use throughout your entire career. Whatever spell slots you have remaining before you take a long rest, dump them all into casting Goodberries. So here at first level, if you're going into a long rest and you have both of your spell slots available, you won't be able to do this with Favorite Enemy because that is only casting Hunter's Mark. But your 2 spell slots for your spellcasting ability, you're going to use to cast Goodberry. So you would have, in this case, 20 Goodberries that will last 24 hours. You take your long rest and you wake up and you've got them for the rest of the next day. And you could cast again on Goodberry the following day if you ran out of Goodberries. So as you advance in a level and you get more and more spell slots, anything left over is not wasted. And that's a wonderful power to have. Both the Ranger and the Druid can do this, of course. And it's just an amazingly effective use of if you didn't use your magic for the day, those spells they didn't do anything for you. The Ranger and the Druid can get the most out of them all the time. There are going to be times when, by the time you get up to a certain level where you're going to be generating 60, 70 Goodberries that you're going to be walking into a fresh day with. That's an extraordinary amount of healing and flexibility, and it's just an amazing, amazing spell. Entangle is, in my mind, comparable with Web, and Web is a spell that I mean, if you've got Web on your spell list, you're a happy camper. And that's a 2nd level spell, and you're getting Entangled here at 1st level. Now, it's important to note, as a controller, you are going to suffer one drawback here, and it's kind of to build around this problem wouldn't be worth it in my point of view. And that is that 16 is great at this level for 16 wisdom for your DCs for spells, but it's never going to advance beyond that, or at least not until you hit something like 12th level or something. So your DCs, once we hit level 4 and level 8, you're going to be behind. So those DCs are not going to be as potent as a full caster, but you're a martial class that can effectively control when needed. You don't need to be thinking of yourself as this must work or we all die. This is an option to lock down part of the battlefield, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't, well, so what? You are able to take that shot, that roll of the dice, and just let's see if it happens. And I need to point out here that the difference between having a 16 and a 20 for DCs, I mean, it's significant, but it's not like earth-shatteringly different. It's still a good DC to have to make creatures save against. So let's also talk about the next trick because it's available right now. You took Alert and you took Find Familiar with Magic Initiate. So I wish I had thought of this, but I didn't. It was either somebody in the comment section or somebody in my Patreon, and I wish I could give them credit, but it was somebody other than me that made this point, and it's a great idea. And that is, if you have Alert and you have a familiar, it doesn't matter if it's a Find Familiar or a regular familiar or if it's a super familiar from Pact of the Chain, with Alert, you're both rolling initiative. And you have the option with Alert to be able to, right after initiative is rolled, you have the ability to swap positions with the other. So what you're essentially getting here is you're giving yourself not just the plus from your proficiency bonus to initiative, you're giving yourself built-in advantage by having the familiar. Your plus is not going to go to their roll, of course, but if they just roll a great roll and it beats your roll and you want that number, you can take it, or vice versa. If you want the familiar going before you and you still have a good number, those kind of situations, you are able to organize them very quickly, very, very easily. So that is a very strong combo to be able to use to set things up the way you want to use them. And of course, Alert is also always going to be great for anybody that has any kind of ambition at all into being a controller. Okay, so these are some of the big ideas that are going to carry on throughout the rest of your career. And they all happen right here. The next big chunk, the big game changer, is when we hit level 3 and we get the Beast. That becomes the defining thing for the subclass, of course. In combat, you're going to have the familiar. This is important to note here. The familiar is always going to provide the help action to you to give you advantage. You are then going to attack with the short sword for Vex. So you're attacking with advantage, and then you hit it and give yourself advantage again for the next attack, which is coming from the scimitar with Nick. Now, when you get to 2 attacks, we're going to go short sword, then the scimitar from with Nick. So in other words, you have advantage on every attack. That's an extraordinarily powerful thing, and you're going to have 2 attacks right from the start with Hunter's Mark with advantage. And what do you think the average damage here with advantage and Hunter's Mark on 2 attacks at first level would be? How does 15.85 sound? I mean, that is staggering. That is at the top of the huge damage dealers. So from levels 1 through 4, this is who you're going to be. You are going to be the killer, and that's going to feel fantastic. It's going to be great. That is going to drop off. It's going to taper off down to simply being really, really good or great damage. But you're not going to be the earth shatterer that you were from levels 1 through 4. But you know what? The only levels you definitely know you're going to play are the ones you start with. So you may as well enjoy it while you've got it. Just to put that in perspective, average damage at this level is 5.85. So at second level, we get our fighting style and we get Deft Explorer. So with fighting style, obviously we're going with 2-up in fighting, and with Deft Explorer, I'm going to recommend stealth. You could certainly go with wisdom. with perception. It's up to you. I think that stealth is generally speaking more valuable than perception because everyone's going to be making perception rolls. But I'm not trying to say that you don't want perception, but this is about expertise. So is it more important that you make the perception roll or the more important that you make the stealth roll? That's just going to be up to you and how you decide to play. I would generally favor stealth, but certainly perception is good. So now from the fighting style, we get our dexterity added to the scimitar attack, which inflates our already insane damage to 18.4 at second level. Killer. Now, I should just point out when I'm doing average damage here, it is a conceit that I am making that you're going to be hitting and providing advantage throughout the chain here. Obviously, you're not going to hit every single time. There's going to be moments, the chance that you're going to hit is overwhelmingly high. And the curve is set against an armor class that you probably are not going to be facing most of the time. It's going to be a lower armor class, which means you probably will hit almost every single time mathematically. From a practical standpoint, if you are hitting against the curve, you have a 15% chance to miss. So these numbers could be slightly going down. I am providing you sort of the rosier picture, slightly rosier side. It's still very realistic, and I generally don't go rosy. What I'm trying to present to you is what you're generally going to have at the table. So if I wanted to do the modeling perfectly correctly, I could figure out what the percentage would be from your beginning to having that of the next and then going down to the next sequence. But that's assuming you're always attacking that same armor class. So I'm just giving you this against the curve. I think it's a pretty realistic representation. And at level 3, of course, we now get our subclass, which is Beastmaster. And so we get one of 3 beasts, beast of the land, beast of the air, beast of the sea. I will be honest with you, the beast of the sea does have some attraction to me, but when you look at its speed, its land speed, unless you're playing in the water, you just don't take it. So we're going with the beast of the land. Now, you need to give a bonus action to the beast for it to attack. So once again, we're back to the bonus action problem because we are using Hunter's Mark, and I'm calculating it's going to take about 2 bonus actions in a 4-round turn in a 4-round combat to utilize Hunter's Mark, which means that you're only going to be activating the beast actively twice in a combat. Where the beast will become more effective, however, is when we talk about spellcasting. So let me just go take a step back here again real quick. So it's a bonus action to command it, very similar to how the familiar works with Pact of the Chain, with Investment of the Chainmaster. So you command the bonus, you give the bonus action, and the beast can attack on its turn. Now, it's important to note that the beast, if it hits your target and that target has Hunter's Mark on it, it will not activate, it will not get the benefit of that extra damage from Hunter's Mark. Not yet, anyway. Only you get that normally. And the Beast of the Land has another, so it does a D8 plus 2 in damage plus your Wisdom modifier in damage. So in this case, a D8 plus 5 in damage is pretty significant. The Beast of the Land also has a cool option that if it moves at least 20 feet towards the target before it hits, then if it does hit, that target, if it is large or smaller, is prone. No save. In addition to that, it's going to deal an additional D6 in damage. So in the opening turn, in your general turn, where both forces are advancing on each other, it's going to be highly desirable for the beast to want to use that charge as often as possible. Now, the numbers I'm going to quote here, I'm not going to quote that extra damage because that's going to be situational and it's just entirely... I think you'll probably be able to get it off once in a combat. Realistically, I think that's very realistic. If so, that extra D6 would translate in terms of DPR because you have to amortize everything with the beast because you're only using it twice out of 4 rounds. And that thing would only happen the once, so it'd be amortized, divided by 4. So it's going to generate about an extra half a point of damage. Now, that may not sound like very much, and it isn't, earth-shattering damage, but this all does begin to add up. And, of course, you get the prone condition. The Beast of the Land also has a 40-foot movement, so that's very nice. And it's going to have a AC of 13 plus your Wisdom modifier, so 16. Now, here's the interesting point with the Beast. You're only activating it twice, but if you don't activate it with a bonus action, its only action that it can really take is dodge on its own. That's not such a bad thing, because now in the actions that the Beast is not being utilized, it's still going to be in the combat area taking the dodge action, which is going to make it even more difficult to hit. And so therefore it's going to be drawing attacks, theoretically drawing attacks. And theoretically, some of those attacks are going to be missing because of the dodge action. So it's providing extra value even when you're not activating it. But here's the real fun part about playing a Beastmaster. There are all these nice little things that when you find them, just make a character if you find the mechanics, it can make a character just so appealing to me. This is one of them. So let's say you're in a situation where you're looking at it, and this is a situation that calls for Entangle. So you cast Entangle. You still have a bonus action. And in that bonus action, you can have the Beast go attack. You could have the Beast attack first if you wanted to with the bonus action, and then cast Entangle, or however. But the point is that you're going to be doing damage in a turn in addition to the casting. So if you cast and it's only somewhat successful, or maybe it's not even successful, you still got that attack off. And here's the fun part. The Beast is going to be attacking with advantage from the familiar. So everything works together here in harmony, and it's just, you're like your own little team. And that kind of an idea, that concept is going to even grow bigger at level 7. So I love pets in games. I don't always play characters that have pets, but I love having them, especially if they're evocative. And so having this Beast and having the familiar and all that type of stuff, I find it just very appealing, and it allows you to show aspects of a character that how we feel about our pets, about animals that we are close to, is very different than how we are with the rest of the world. And your character should be that way too, and how they care for these animals that are such a huge part of their life. So even though it may not be an intelligent familiar like Impact of the Chain, which has its own crazy kind of role-playing aspects to it, this one's actually a bit more endearing because you're dealing with animals as opposed to an intelligent creature. Intelligent in the way that I'm talking about a Pact of the Chain familiar is. So once again, casting, in the turns that you decide to cast, you're going to be getting that bonus action from 3rd level forward now. You're having such a dramatic impact on the battlefield no matter what. If it's doing damage, it's crazy damage. If you're doing control, not only are you doing control, you're slapping the enemy with the bear, the dog, whatever your Beast of the Land is also ripping the enemy apart. And just as a point of reference here, with advantage when the Beast attacks, and if it gets that D6 charge, this is the only time I'm going to quote this because I think that this is how you'd want to do it, the Beast is going to be doing 11.95 in damage on average. And if it doesn't get the charge off, it's minus a D6. So it's, with advantage, that's about, 2.4 or something like that, or thereabouts. 2.6 or 2.7, thereabouts. So you would just subtract it from that. So you're still doing like 9 points of damage and you wouldn't have the prone condition and all that, but you're still doing 9 at this level. Even in later levels, nearly 12 points of damage, or about 9 or 10 points of damage from the familiar, or from the Beast on a turn that you are casting a major spell. That's fantastic. So I can't reiterate this enough. You are going to dominate encounters from levels 1 through 4. This character is going to seem like the most powerful character in Dungeons and Dragons from levels 1 through 4. There may be a slight bit of hyperbole there, but it's it's going to be a top shelf character. It's going to drop off a little bit from levels 5 forward, but that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're worse. It just means that everybody else got caught up a little bit more. In fact, I think that it's probably preferable for a character to have this moment of sheer dominance that fades a little bit when other characters begin to catch up. Because if you're that dominant throughout the entire campaign, it begins to get a little old. But man, is it fun while you have it. I don't think I mentioned this at the top of the video, and I meant to, is we're going up to level 11. I will touch very briefly at what the level 15 ability is, but other than that, I'm not going to deal with the levels in between. At level 4, we get our ASI, of course, and what I'm going to suggest we take is, and this one really threw me, this is what I had to wrap my head around for a long, long time, is Defensive Duelist. So we're getting our 18 into dexterity. That's fantastic. And when we use our reaction, we are adding our proficiency bonus to our armor class, and that is lasting until our next turn. This is effectively shield. Granted, we're talking about +2 at this level, but it's got the shield duration effect. So if you're getting hit hard, it's a reaction, and you can do it after you've already been hit, just like shield. So very, very effective, and more importantly, it is the synergy here. So now your bonus actions every round are accounted for. Your action, obviously, is for attack or casting. And now your reaction, because you're a frontline fighter and a dual wielder, you're getting armor class you're using a reaction every single turn. So your own action economy is great. And you've got a familiar and you've got a beast, which is all those, the beast's action economy is going to be even greater. This character is just chock full of action economy. And I forgot to note at 3rd level what the beast does for your average DPR. It's going to be the same as what I'm about to quote to you now. So your average damage now with your new 18 dex with advantage with Hunter's Mark 2 attacks is 20.1. When you have the beast attacking twice in a 4-round combat, your DPR is 23.06. In general, the beast will be hitting for about 6 points of damage on average. Obviously, that'll go up a little bit if it does get the charge off. Obviously, if it's got advantage, that number changes as well. But in your general scheme of things, it's about 6 points per an attack. And when you have to divide that by 2, you get 3. So it's bumping your damage up by 3. Now, once again, we're not taking the dual wielder feat because you don't have the bonus actions for it. You just don't. And if you're going to play Beastmaster, you just can't do it. It took me forever to get that through my head that there was no way to do a feat that was going to deal with getting more damage that didn't really require a bonus action. Sure, there are things that, like Polearm Master could use a reaction, but the main reason you're taking Polearm Master is for the extra bonus action attack. So when it all came down, and obviously the dual wielding thing is bonus action. So when it all came down to it, and I realized, you need a finesse weapon? Check. You have a reaction? Don't have those accounted for? Check. The only other option was Sentinel. And I dislike Sentinel for one reason, and that is that it's up to the DM to determine if it's going to be any good or not. Sure, there's some things you can do to create the conditions where it's more likely to happen, obviously. And I'm not saying Sentinel's bad. I have a hard time recommending it for this character, whereas Defensive Duelist is one of those things that if you are using finesse weapons, and you're in this kind of a situation, this is the feat, I believe, that you should grab for combat. By this point, you do have 3 spell slots, so you could be casting an Entangle at every encounter. That's certainly possible. I wouldn't recommend it. It's a concentration spell. Use it when you feel it's going to be critical, because you're going to be doing so much damage. It's just, you want to be saving those moments for ones that only control is really going to turn that battle around. Your ability to generate this kind of damage at this level is unbelievably good, and you should take advantage of it. All right, so level 5 is a big level, obviously, and you get 2 attacks, and you get second level spells. So now you have 4 first level spell slots and 2 second level spell slots. For spells, let me just say, I think you have to take Spike Growth and you have to take Aid. Now, with Spike Growth is one of these spells that, by itself, very good. When you would include it with push effects to generate damage on the enemy like that, it's great. Unfortunately, the Ranger only gets 2 weapon masteries that it can have at any given time. So while I would love to recommend that you have a heavy crossbow with you, and when you cast that, then you start hitting them with heavy crossbow, which has the push. You're hitting them for damage and pushing them for more damage. That's a great combo, but you can't get it. Now you could, of course, at 4th level have taken the weapon mastery. If you wanted to build the entire character around that kind of an idea, you certainly could. And there's one that'll give you a weapon mastery. You could do that. I don't see the character in that way, but people do go crazy for the cheese grater thing. So if that really floats your boat, you could certainly do it. And it would be right in the right time. So if you took it at 4th level and had that as an option for the heavy crossbow, you could then at 5th level, you'll have Spike Growth, and you could have that entire playstyle open to you. That's control and damage. It's very effective, very, very good. But I just don't see the point in building. One of the great things about this character is how flexible it can be. Now, you could argue that that's just another level of flexibility, but I would say that what you don't have, you have the ability to heal, control. There's all kinds of things that you can do as a ranger. I would really just feel that trying to specialize in the one spell, as good as it may be, is not as strong as having that defensive option, which is that defensive option from Defensive Duelist. Remember that doesn't cost you anything other than a reaction. Shield is a spell slot and a reaction. I should also point out here at this level, now with having 6 spell slots, this gives you the option of doing 6 good berries at the end of every night before you turn in for long rest. So 60 at 5th level. That's fantastic to be able to walk into a new adventure with 60 good berries in your bag. So Spike Growth and Aid are the 2 that I would... Aid is just a fantastic spell, and it synergizes well with everything else and doesn't require concentration. Very, very effective spell. So you're a character that can put their hands into kind of everything, having the ability to heal, having the ability to be an infiltrator, having the ability to control, having the ability to do very good damage, great damage early levels, and still great, just not as great as some of the others. But you'll see when we get to the damage quotes here, still very, very strong. The only thing that you don't have in this character is you don't have social skills. Now, in my opinion, I don't think social skills are the linchpin for being effective in the social aspect of the game. I think that's all about role-playing. Sure, the skills can help, but they are not the deciding factor of how effective your character is in the social skills part of the game, in the social pillar part of the game. So for the ones that do have to have the numbers behind them, you've got them. Very effective, great character. So your average damage from you alone at this level is 30.15. That's very, very good, borderline great. And then you get another 3 from the beast. So you're at 2.98 from the beast. So you're a little over 3 points of 33 points. That's in I would say the strong B+ or A- territory of damage. It's very, very high. Average damage at this level is 16.5. So that you're doing great damage with all the other bells and whistles and options. Just a very effective character. And at 6th level, we get Roving. That's going to give you an extra 10 feet of movement speed while you're not in heavy armor. That's fantastic. and you gain a climb and swimming speed that is equal to that speed. That climb speed is going to be incredibly useful. And the swim speed is great when you need it. Let's just put it that way. At level 7, we get our subclass feature. So now the beast, when you give it the bonus action to attack, it's going to have its own bonus action that it can take. And it can take the dash, the disengage, or the dodge, or the help action. Now, 3 of those, I think, are ones that you should always be considering using. Obviously, for the ability for the beast to be able to attack and dodge in the same turn is very, very, very effective. Having the beast attack and then bonus action disengage so that it can facilitate doing the charge action when it comes at him again, that's great. But remember that that bonus action may not be happening in the very next round, so you want to be thinking about that. But that can be a very effective thing to do. The help action, now, in general, it would go something like the familiar's giving you the help action, you attack, then you bonus action, the beast attacks. So there's no way to get use of that help action for you personally, but there's no reason why you shouldn't use it to help one of your comrades. So if you're giving the help action and a comrade is doing average damage, that means that help action is worth about 3.5, 3.7 points of DPR. You could easily look at that as being added onto your DPR. In that case, now remember though, this is only happening 2 out of the 4 rounds because of how the bonus actions work with Hunter's Mark, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it wouldn't be an extra 3.7 every single round. It would be 1.85 added onto your overall DPR. And that's just, the ability for helping set up criticals by giving your teammate advantage and all that type of stuff. Just a very, very effective thing. Or like I said, the beast could have great facility in using the disengage or the dodge actions. Very, very good. Action, economy, crazy character. Level 8, we get our ASI. We're putting our dex to 20. And now for average damage, when we figure everything in from the beast and the beast's help action and you doing your thing and all that, it comes out to 37.49 in average damage per round. That's very, very good. And at level 9, we get our 3rd level spells. There are some really great choices here. A Revivify is one of those spells that you could argue is one of the most powerful 3rd level spells in the game, and you wouldn't hear any... I don't know what beats bringing back someone back to life. That's a pretty powerful effect, and it only existed in 5th edition. It never existed before this. That was a 5th level spell. Granted, it's got its time limits, et cetera, but it's an incredibly... I take Revivify to be sure. But there's water breathing, there's Dispel Magic, there's Conjure Animals, there's Summon Fae, there's just choices galore. And so but Revivify is one of those things that you always want to have it on hand. But Revivify is one of those things that if you have the option to take it, you take it, because folks, dying stinks. And it stings a little bit less if your character was only dead for less than a minute, because then you can kind of look at it and say, well, I didn't really die. So from a role-playing standpoint, you could be looking at it like it's the... I forget what they call those things, the paddles that make the heart start again. I always view it in that kind of thing. Whereas if you're talking about raised dead or resurrection, well, that's what it is. You were dead. Here I can look at Revivify, that death kind of just didn't count. And so you're giving another player character that ability to be able to take that death a little bit easier. It's an invaluable spell to have, in my opinion. But all those spells that I mentioned all are worth looking at and worth considering taking, of course. You also get expertise at this level. So now you're getting 2 extra skills that you gain in expertise. I'm going to recommend that you take, obviously, between stealth and perception, whatever one you didn't take. With Deft Explorer, you take that one. So now you'll have stealth and perception. And personally, for me, I would probably want to take something like Insight. Insight is one of those things. Now, there are many, many choices you could take here. and their acrobatics, things like that. Those are all incredibly good choices. But you have a reasonably good wisdom score, and having expertise, the ability to know if someone's lying. You get lied to all the time in Dungeons and Dragons. So having a skill that is going to be able to hit a high DC number, reasonably high DC number, I think that's pretty valuable. And now at 10th level, you gain Tireless. So as a magic action, you can give yourself a D8 plus your wisdom modifier and temporary hit points. I mean, that's not, I love temporary hit points. That's not at 10th level a whole lot of temporary hit points, but it's better than nothing. And you can also use it to remove a level of exhaustion. Now that's actually the bigger deal, obviously, but the temporary hit points are the thing that you're going to use it for all the time. So you're going to get, 7.5 temporary hit points as a magic action. You can use it a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. So 3. So in this case, 3 times a day getting that is certainly not anything to sneeze at. It's not, in terms of the temporary hit point granting things in this game, it's not overly much, but it's better than nothing, that's for sure. But I will be honest, as a 10th level ability goes, unless you're in a situation where exhaustion levels are happening all the time, it's an okay ability for 10th level. It's not all that overwhelming, but that's okay. The Ranger has got actually quite a bit of stuff. So having this be the first ability that's kind of like, it's 10th level. That's okay. Now, here at 11th level, we get our subclass feature. This is the last level I'm going to cover in depth, is Bestial Fury. So now, when you give the bonus action, the Bestial Strike command to the beast, when it attacks, now it attacks twice. So again, action economy crazy here. And it's still, of course, got its bonus action. So it attacks twice. In addition to that, if it attacks a creature that has your hunter's mark on it, the first time it attacks, it's going to get, the first time it hits, it's going to receive that hunter's mark in force damage. Only that one time, though, in the round. This means that when the beast attacks, when you give it the bonus action to attack, it itself is generating, without the charge, a little over 14 points of damage by itself. Now, before you get too excited about that number, remember that we've only got so many times in a combat that we can really do it. This is a significant amount of damage, though. So, I mean, significant. So if you just amortize it to having it happen twice, then you're talking about your DPR going up by 7. This puts your DPR at 11th level into the 44 range. Great. It's great damage. It's just not hitting the stratospheric numbers that the other, some of the 2 or 3 other classes can hit, but that's incredibly good damage. So the action economy is just, you're getting the familiar, you're getting, your own bonus action always being used, your reaction always being used, the beast getting its own bonus action and getting extra attack. It's a lot of stuff that you get with the Beastmaster. And at 15th level, very briefly, you can share spells. So if a spell is affecting you, it can affect the beast. Very nice. It's 15th level. Most campaigns don't see 15th level. Most campaigns are pretty much over by 13th, 14th level, in my opinion. So I don't spend too much time on that. Having an option like that is obviously very, very good. Is it a great 15th level ability? It's okay. It's okay. But that's not important. Don't worry about the 15th level ability. That 11th level, that's fantastic. And it really is the thing to look forward to. This is when you come back up into that area where you're in that area again of doing semi-dominant damage. You're in that A- range of the dominant damage dealers. Plus all the control effects and all the other stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's a character that can do so much. And has an answer for just about everything. I think it's and has the fun and the charm of playing with pets. It's great. I would strongly consider it. I think it would be a really fun character to play. All right, well, that's all I've got. If you enjoyed the video, please like, please share, please subscribe. And if you're stuck and you don't know where to go, you can always search for a secret door. Until next time, I cast bless on all of you.